Slow learners. Today we're really going to be focusing mostly on making sure that everybody's training program is set up in a way that you can actually recruit those people and then keep them. So it's a two-part problem. A lot of times people think that part of the problem is that the learners aren't keeping up. But the other part of it is that sometimes we're not recruiting people in a way that it makes it clear what our training program is going to look like. So I do have one document that I wanted to share, but I don't have it uploaded yet. I just realized, so I'm going to do that right now while I'm still talking to you. So what I want to have everybody think about is what our recruiting flyers look like. So I know a lot of times when people think of their recruiting flyers, they have something on them that says something along the lines of, everyone here is welcome. We're recruiting officials and volunteers and skaters. Or have you ever wanted to get fit and learn how to play roller derby at the same time? Or there's a variety of different sorts of recruiting methods that we typically use. So when we do those sorts of things, it's always really important that what our recruiting flyer says actually reflects what is going to happen within our practice. I've noticed that a lot of times we say things like, any fitness level is welcome. And then on the first day, we have a level of training that is not accessible to everyone. So that's the first thing that I really wanted people to think about. And while we're doing that, if anybody that's out there wants to say hello so that I know who I'm talking to and how you're involved in Derby, that would be really helpful. That I know if I'm talking to people that are more Team Turtle specific, or if they are people that are coaching, if it's people that are looking specifically for tips on recruiting or coaching people, if it's people that are just saying, hey, I'm out here and I feel like I wanted to be recognized, whatever it is, that would be great. So that being said, I'm still learning the software while I'm talking to you. I'm looking to figure out where I need to upload this software for you. What I am coaching new skaters, and you want, oh, that's fantastic. I also coach new skaters. Those are my people. So I really appreciate when I have people that are out there coaching new skaters and are trying to figure out ways that they can make what they're doing more accessible to new skaters and to make sure that the program that we have is something that everyone can do. So I'm really going to be focusing on that a lot more when we do the full presentation. There's a lot of things that we have within my league that we have added along the way. But we really have a program that keeps new skaters that learn slowly in the program for quite some time. Just this year, actually, we have, the way that our program is set up is a lot different. We have a lot of different levels of assessments along the way. And we have this year had 3 skaters that have assessed out of non-contact learning how to skate into what we call our rookies program, which is the first contact portion of learning how to skate. Those 3 skaters that I'm speaking about specifically have all been in our non-contact program for over a year. So that's kind of a big deal that we could keep somebody for over a year, continuing to train them and getting them to the point where they could start actually participating in Derby. So I love those people. Those are my people. So the thing that I'm trying, I still can't find where I can upload oh, here it comes. Fortunately, I'm going to get some help because I can't find it. So I need to upload a document for you all to take a look at. I have a survey that I like to include for folks so that they can count. That's not a good term. It's basically what it is it was originally based on a Horatio Alger's activity that is done specifically referring to privilege and prejudice. And I have switched it so that it's very more Derby specific. So the Derby specific portion is questions that you answer. And for each question that you answer, you either get a plus or a minus point. and you just add all of your points up at the end and you see where you stand. And that gives you a better idea of where you are in relation to other folks in the Derby community. So the way that relates back to the Horatio Alger's activity is it is a activity that when done in real life, everyone stands shoulder to shoulder and takes a step forwards or a step backwards based on how they answer the question. So it's a much more visual activity to do. It's not necessarily something that you want to do with new incomers, but I really do like to do it with the current league members to just give them an understanding of where everyone was coming from when they got there. And as soon as I find it, the activity I call Where's Your Jam Line? And I'm just going to have to make a new copy of it. And I really like it because it gives people the opportunity to look at everyone in their league and see where how much work people have to put in to get to where they are. Because not everyone, we come into Derby thinking everyone has the same abilities, which we have. I believe a lot of us have the same potential, but I don't know if I would say that we walk in the door with the same abilities. So with that being said, when we look at what we're doing and how accessible that is to people, we need to understand that the amount of time that it takes for people to get where they are, I'm so sorry, is varying for everyone. And the amount of work that people put in, sometimes I don't think is necessarily appreciated when you connect it to where they start from. So that's sort of where all of this came from originally. So that being said, now I'm going to move this out of my way so that I can actually see if any of you had anything to say to me. I have too many things happening in my windows. I'm going to upload the file. I'm so sorry. I can't see what you're saying to me if there is anything. So the way that this activity works, as I said, you just add up your points. And I just want to tack on to the end of that. When I did this activity, my number was -11. So that's going to make more sense to you in just a minute. Here are my files and it's uploaded and there it is. And now I just have to figure out how to share it with everybody and it's going to be great. So I'm going to, while we're waiting for that, because I'm sure watching me upload files is boring, I am going to start reading the questions to you. It's pretty simple. I'm going to share it with you so that you'll all have access to it. And it's a good activity to do as a team bonding activity to sort of assess your team as a whole. The first question. Oh, there it is. Haha. Did it come up? Can y'all see it? I hope so. Yeah, I did introduce myself, I thought, but let me do it again in case I didn't, because now I'm backing up. Okay, yes, you can see it. Excellent. I'm going to back up because apparently maybe I didn't introduce myself. Did I say my name is Squirrel? I did. My name is Squirrel Power. I'm with Monterey Bay Derby Dames. I have had a lot of injuries since I've been doing Derby, and I came in old and out of shape. So coming in old and out of shape and having a lot of injuries is something that definitely had an effect on my learning in the beginning. So I hope that everyone can see this. I'm going to see if I can make it a little bit bigger because it's so small. There we go. Okay, so when people join Derby, they're all coming from different places. What I like to do is take these questions. You just read them out. You can have people lined up and they can take a step forward. The plus ones mean you're doing great. The minus ones means not so much. It's a little bit difficult. So if you go through the questions, you can do so on your own. I'm also just going to sort of go through them quickly. And they show some of the things that leave people behind when they join Derby. So once you hear the questions, you'll understand. If you're less than 24 years old, and this is when it says 1, I would say take 1 step forward, but we're just going to say add 1 to your score. If you were athletic before coming to Derby, add 1 to your score. If you played team sports, add 1 to your score. If you never played team sports before Derby, subtract 1 from your score. If you knew how to skate when you joined Derby, add 1. If the cost of equipment kept you from joining when you wanted to, -1. If you have health insurance beyond WFTDA, add 1. That's a question that's very specific to the United States, I think, because many of the other countries that participate in Derby have socialized healthcare, which we do not have in the United States, and healthcare is prohibitively expensive. If you're over 33 years old, subtract 1. If you have ever been told that you couldn't participate in a particular activity because of your gender, -1. If you have been told that you wouldn't be good at a sport because of your size, -1. If a medical professional has ever told you to lose or gain weight, -1. If you've ever been misgendered, -1. If you've played a contact sport before Derby, +1. If you have children in your home, -1. If you've ever had to miss Derby practice because it conflicts with work, -1. If your work gives you vacation days, +1. If you don't have to pay for your own travel and lodging for away games, +1. If you've ever been hit by someone intending to do you physical harm, -1. If your league has a formal training process, +1. If you have a support system for off-skates training, +1. If you know how to eat for peak exercise performance, +1. If you've ever had disordered eatings or symptoms of an eating disorder, -1. If you have regular opportunities to practice with officials, +1. If your team has ever had to go to a game with less than 10 skaters, -1. If you have access to people who can answer questions about the rules and strategies of Derby, +1. If you have to purchase your own uniform, -1. If you have to travel more than 30 minutes to get to practice, -1. If your monthly league dues are more money than you make working for 3 hours, -1. If you had role models in your home who roller skated regularly, +1. If the majority of people on your team are the same ethnicity as you, +1. If you started with used gear, -1. If you have to repair gear yourself because you haven't been able to afford to fix it before, -1. If the rule set that you play is available in your first language, -1. If your regular practice space is outside, oh, I'm so sorry, I missed one. If the rule set you play in is available in your first language, +1. If your regular practice space is outside, -1. If while skating you have sustained an injury that required a doctor's attention, -1. If your league has a dedicated training space and can set its own training schedule, +1. There are so many more questions that I could have added to this, but I had to stop at some point. This is a really good jumping point for people to realize whether or not their league has been made accessible to a variety of people. Some of the things that are preventing people from joining Derby not only are that Derby's not accessible financially or distance-wise, but one of the other things is that a lot of times there are other issues that are keeping people from coming to Derby or keeping them from progressing quickly. And a lot of time we are not addressing those. We say that Derby is an accessible sport, but many of these things aren't being addressed regularly. And I think that as a sport, because we are trying to do things differently, we should definitely look at these other things. One of the things that came up recently when I was presenting at RollerCon is someone was speaking about not everyone in their league has internet access. And if the main league communications are all done by way of internet access, then some people aren't going to have access to league communication, which is something that we hadn't considered where I live. But it's definitely something that we should probably add into our communication process is how do we communicate with people that don't have internet access? So the ability to look at the structure of your league and the structure of your training in order to assess whether or not the people that you are welcoming into your training are actually people that you can train is really important. So once we actually get to the official summit, I'm going to be talking more about some of the ways that we can adjust our training, some of the ways that our league has adjusted our training so that we are more accessible to more levels of skaters at the same time. which has grown our league pretty seriously over the last 4 years. We've grown exponentially over the last 4 years. And I'm also going to spend some time talking about ways that we can keep skaters engaged when they are not learning as quickly. It's really easy to keep people engaged in Derby when they learn how to skate, they get out there, they're doing full contact, they get to scrimmage, and then they're in a game. It's easy to keep people engaged. But all of those other skaters or all of those other people involved in Derby are also very valuable. Some of them are not necessarily skaters. Some of them are NSOs. Some of them are volunteers. We have off skates coaches with our league that are very successful. Some of them have been previously in other sports. Some of them have been previous Derby players that no longer want to play full contact Derby, but still want to be involved. And all of that has been really helpful within our league. And it has encouraged us to continue to expand our program in ways that is bringing in more skaters than we could possibly field, which is, I think, ultimately the goal, is to have so many people that you can expand and have 2 teams and 3 teams and as many teams as you want. So that's sort of the quick and dirty, not that quick, not that dirty version of what I'm planning on talking about when we do the summit. If anybody has anything that they want to add to that or questions that they have that they'd like me to address, I'm happy to do that. I'm trying to see if any of the people that are in the room are people that I've already discussed these things with previously. I don't think so, but feel free, if you have any questions, to go ahead and type them into the public chat, or you can also type them into the Q&A and I can post them. And I would love to be able to answer some questions if anyone has them, but if not, I have plenty of things that I can continue to talk about when we go into the summit event. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where I'm coming from and what kinds of things that I'm hoping to address with everyone. I have been pulling for Team Turtle for quite some time. I think that addressing the needs of newer skaters is the way that we're going to keep people engaged in Derby and the way that we're going to keep them from getting injuries early on. And I don't know. I love Derby and I'm very excited to be doing this. But I'm not really sure what else. I don't know what else to say. I think I've come to the end of things to say without questions. I could keep talking forever, but I don't know if they're necessarily things that you want to hear about. So what I do now, I'm going to just talk about that really quickly, and then I'm going to wrap it up, I think, is what I'm currently doing is I am coaching the brand new skaters that are within our league. So the brand new skaters that are in our league are the ones who can't even stand up. They walk in, they don't have any gear. We have to talk them through where to get skates and how to put their gear on and everything. Within that, one of the things that we do is we tell people that if they're not sure if they want to do Derby, you can learn how to skate in any skates. You don't have to get $200, $300, $400 skates. We have people that come to our training that get their skates at Walmart. And if you don't know how to skate, you can learn how to skate on Walmart skates before you decide if Derby is for you. That's okay. We do tell them that they should invest in the most expensive knee pads that they can, because you're not going to be able to keep doing Derby if your knees are blown out. But we also have loaner gear. So all of those things are options. We also break down our training. We start with everybody in one big group. And then as people progress in their own way and pace within our training program, our groups then become smaller, not because we're necessarily always losing people, but we like to have groups that are focusing more on fundamental skills. And then we have another group that's focusing on applying those fundamental skills. So within the fundamental skills group, we generally are teaching the skills that you need to do the other steps. So, for example, when we teach plow stops, we start with everybody working together. We say, okay, here's what you're going to do. And somebody demonstrates it, and we put everybody on the track, and we say, let's give this a shot. And then we can assess how everyone's doing. And from there, we can split people aside and go, okay, this group of you is going to come over here and we're going to work on the fundamentals, and this group is going to stay on the track. And we oftentimes switch those groups midway so that even the people that got it in the beginning can still go back and work on the fundamentals. So I think that a lot of those things have been very helpful. And I think that, I'm sorry, I just adjusted my screen. I think that, I'm so sorry. I am very easily distracted. I just noticed. I think that by dividing up the skaters into the fundamentals and non-fundamental groups, that we can reteach things that sometimes skaters haven't necessarily learned in the way that they need to use for Derby. So the question that has come up, let me see if I can get it to work. Look at that. Are all of your fundamental skills groups starting as non-skaters? No. So we sometimes have to put skaters into fundamental skills groups because they already know how to skate, but they don't know how to skate Derby. So if you know how to skate, but you don't know how to skate Derby style, you might be putting your center of gravity up too high, which is really great for artistic skating and you look beautiful. But if you get hit and your center of gravity is up too high, you're going to go down quicker. Or sometimes we have to put people in fundamental skills group. We don't have to. Sometimes we put people in fundamental skills groups because they have really great endurance and they can whip out 27 laps in 5 minutes, but they don't do that with good form. So 27 laps in 5 minutes is great, but if you don't have good form, it's important to go back and teach those skills in a way that when they're being reinforced and you're continuing to use them, you're doing so in a way that's going to benefit you in the long run. One of the things that we have started doing with some of the skaters that have been in the program for longer is going back and telling them when they're doing their 27 laps, we're not going to time them, because it's more important that they do the 27 laps with good form than to do the 27 laps quickly. So fundamental skills groups don't necessarily mean that they can't do a skill. Sometimes it's that the skill needs to be retaught in a way that's going to be more effective in Derby. Woo, it's getting windy out here. It's 95 degrees out Fahrenheit today, so I thought it was a perfect day for outside, but now this breeze is kicking up and it might not work out so well. So hopefully, Bomber, that answered your question about fundamental skills groups. I don't know if maybe you wanted me to extrapolate on that a little bit more. Feel free to pop another question up if you want to. One of the things that another example of a fundamental skill is we've noticed with T-stops, and I'm talking about the easy stuff, right? Like we could go all the way up, but I work with the easy ones. The fundamental skills group, people that do T-stops, you can't do a T-stop if you can't do a one-footed glide. So if we're going to teach people how to do T-stops, but they already can't do a one-footed glide, then the fundamental skills group will be focusing more on being able to do that one-footed glide before you move your foot back, or getting that balance right before you move your foot back. So sometimes the fundamental skills are a skill that you thought you had mastered, or you didn't realize that you needed that skill in order to do something else. That's another one that comes up with crossovers a lot. People are like, well, I should start doing crossovers, but you can't do a crossover if you can't balance on one foot. That's not going to work. The next question that has come up. Oh my gosh, so many things. Let me do this crossover ones first and then go to the other one. Let's see. A one-footed glide is necessary for nearly everything. So do you just have them on one foot gliding for 6 months? No. That's a good question, though. No, of course we wouldn't have them on one foot gliding for 6 months before teaching new skills. In order to get somebody gliding on one foot, you have to be able to assess what the problem is back down to why they're not balancing. We usually don't work on any one particular skill for more than 15 minutes at a time, because if you continue to work on that skill for an extended period of time, the learning that has started at the beginning doesn't necessarily still track when you get to the end. So at 15 minutes, we try to switch it up and do something else each time. So what we do is when we're working on other skills, for example, a lot of times when we have people on the track and we're doing drills, and the drill might include something that requires a one-footed glide, we say, okay, so we're out on the track. Everybody's going to be skating at a moderate pace. When I blow the whistle, I want you to fill in the blank here. If you can't do a one-footed glide, then please do a one-footed glide. So that's just one example. And then bomber, let's see, how many trainers do we have working at once, and how many skaters, and how many vets? That's an excellent question. Okay, so we have in our boot camp session, well, let me back that up. We have our travel team has its own practice. We're really lucky that our practice space is not so expensive that we can afford to have separate practices. So our travel team has a practice. Our all league has its own practice. We have an all league practice that is open to the travel team and also to the rookies, which is what we used to call fresh meat. So that's an all league practice for everyone except for the new skaters. And we have we also have a boot camp practice. That's all non-contact, and none of the assessed skaters are allowed to participate in that because our boot camp is strictly training and it does not require woofed insurance, and it's in a separate room and it's in a separate space. So all of that being said, our boot camp has 2 coaches at a time minimum, and our travel team has 1 coach, and our rookie team has 1 coach, and our all league has 1 coach that's working at the time. So our boot camp is the one where we regularly split into fundamentals and other skills. The other groups, because they've gone through boot camp, are familiar with, if you already know this skill, have a discussion with the person that you're working with about how you're doing this skill, what you're seeing. And we have a very open communication structure within our league. One of the things that we offer for league members is something called Skills Lab, where we have open track time for 2 hours. Again, I said we're really lucky and we have a space that we can afford to do this, that anybody's allowed to come in and use the track and ask questions. So we have somebody from the training team that is there, that's usually me, to unlock the building and make sure that everything is safe and people are wearing their gear. And then we have a minimum of 3 skaters have to be there, including the one from the training team for safety reasons. And from there, people just come in and say what they want to work on. And sometimes people agree to come meet each other for skills labs. Sometimes people just show up and say, hey, I'm having a really hard time with my, left transitions, or I'm having a hard time with my C cuts, or whatever it is. And they just come in and work with each other. So we're lucky that we have enough people that we can do that. But because of the way that our training is broken up, we have skaters that maybe are on the travel team that are coaching the boot camp team, or they're on the travel team and they might run a practice for our all league. So we have regular practices. We have 2 practices on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. in separate rooms, and 2 practices on Thursdays on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. and 2 practices on Thursday at 6 p.m. And those are in separate rooms, Tuesday, Thursday. And then we have 2 practices at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and 2 practices at 8 p.m. on Thursdays. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Nope, I'm saying it wrong. We have 2 on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8, and we have 1 on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. So what that means is that the 6 p.m. time leaves a space open for us to be able to have that skills lab. And we're out of time. It's 1:30. So I would love to be able to continue this conversation more. I feel like I just barely got into the part about talking about what we're doing and how that's working out for us. Yeah, we have a really great system here, and I'm so sorry. I wish everybody could have so much space and so much time. But we made the system work in a way by using the resources that we already had within our league. And the way that that's done and the way that we split up our training space, I think is really fundamental in being able to do that. So we're out of time, and I would love to talk more to everybody. We're in November, at the end of November. I don't remember the dates. I'm super sorry. Rule 56. When are we doing the actual dates for the summit? So now you get to see how goofy I am. But that's me. That's everything. It was super nice. November 22nd through November 24th. There it is. It was nice being able to talk to everybody. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you can pop me a message on Facebook in the Rule 56 group. You're welcome to do that. And I would love to continue this conversation with you in November. So thanks so much, everybody. Signing out. This is Squirrel with Monterey Bay Derby Dames. And I don't know how to turn this off, but I'll figure it out.